timely song for our message today. I've chosen an interesting sermon title. I had quite a lively discussion on Facebook. I posted the sermon title and asked people to weigh in on whether they thought it was a yes or whether it was a no. Will God attend the inauguration? Well, there is some news about who will not attend the inauguration. The people. The inauguration has been moved indoors, and tens of thousands of people who spent thousands of dollars on planes, trains, and automobiles and hotel rooms to get to Washington, D.C., trying to be there so that they could walk to the National Mall and witness the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States. But all of their efforts are for naught. Because the president-elect, well, let's see, how shall I say this? Maybe didn't want to stand out in the cold, to take the oath outside, because it's going to be cold in the wintertime in Washington, D.C., just like it is every winter and every inauguration. Now, I'm sure that there are those who are disappointed that they won't be able to attend the inauguration. And for those who are disappointed, I have this to say: get used to it. You're going to be disappointed a lot because there were so many extraordinary, extravagant, amazing promises that things were going to be like no one had ever seen them before. Get used to it. This is just the first of many, and it isn't even day one yet. But I'm not sure. You see, I am a witness that it is cold in the winter at inauguration in D.C. In fact, thanks to Tom Tyson and Pat Seaborg, who generously gave Gail and I their tickets to the Obama inauguration, because they said it will probably mean more to you than to us. And we were so blown away and so glad to receive those tickets. And we spent thousands of dollars and flew to Washington, D.C. and stayed in the hotel where I stayed with friends and family, fortunately. But I'm a witness that you can be outside in Washington, D.C. on January 20th, and I'm a native Californian, so I don't do cold. We woke up this morning, we said, "Ooh, it's chilly. It's going to be 60 degrees today." And it wasn't just me. My wife, Gail, was there too, and she really doesn't do cold. In fact, she says she married me because I had warm hands. I do have warm hands. And so we were there together, and we were, chilly, but we stood there for hours and hours to witness the history that Barack Obama was making that day, becoming the first black president of African descent. Now, I say of African descent because some people say Bill Clinton was the first black president, but he was not of African descent. But I digress. We were able to withstand the cold, not just because we were excited about the hope-filled promise of the administration that told America, yes, we can fight climate change. Yes, we can fight racial discrimination and white supremacy. Yes, we can have a progressive tax system that puts the burden on those who can bear it. Yes, we can support a woman's right to determine for themselves whether, when, and how many children to bear. Yes, we can recognize the humanity of all people, regardless of their native language, regardless of their native state of origin. No matter where they come from in the world, they are God's children. They are human beings. Yes, we can have marriage equality as the law of the land so that who you love is who you love. We were excited by those promises, but we could also withstand the cold because we were surrounded by 1.8 million people all huddled together. So we didn't have to endure the cold by ourselves. And the wind chill factor that day was 14 degrees. And they have canceled tomorrow's public inauguration because it's going to be 11 degrees. It just doesn't seem that that's reason enough. So I want to pray right now that they might have good weather tomorrow. Oh God, you control the sun and the sky and the seas. Please give Washington, D.C. sunshine and warmth for the inauguration. In fact, let the sun shine. Let the sun shine in. Come on, sing with me. The sun shine in. But that may be too much. It would just highlight the irony of that moment. And in fact, I'm not sure that the 11 degrees is the reason the inauguration is moving indoors. It might be because there will not be enough people there for them to keep each other warm. They tell me hotel bookings were lagging far behind other inaugurations, and the president-elect did not want the embarrassment of the comparisons to the crowds that had gathered for his predecessors, especially Barack Obama. So we know now that the people won't be there at the inauguration. Someone said in one of the morning shows that the inauguration would be held indoors for the members of Congress and for the billionaires who contributed to this inauguration. $250 million contributed to the inauguration. Now, it would seem to me that since all the activities and the parades and all that were canceled, that there should be a refund process for all those who spent their hard-earned money. But the person said this is a metaphor for the next 4 years. The people shut out, the billionaires invited in. But I have a much more important question. Will God attend the inauguration? Well, let's ask a prophet of God whether God is likely to show up. Cold weather and all. No, not me. Don't be silly. Let's ask the prophet Amos. Amos should know something about when and where God appears. You see, Amos was a prophet in Israel. I need to back up my slides here. How do I back up? Okay. Amos was a prophet in Israel at a time not unlike the United States today. Israel was experiencing, at that point in their history, an unprecedented time of wealth and prosperity. Oh, I know what you're going to say. I'm not rich. No, you're not rich, but the country is. This country has more centimillionaires, people worth $100 million or more, than we've ever had in our history. We have more billionaires than at any time in history. There are 9,730 centimillionaires and 756 billionaires. And the richest man in human history is now worth over $400 billion. Israel had a lot of wealth, but it was not evenly distributed. Income inequality afflicted them, and income inequality afflicts us. The bottom 50% of our nation, 167 million people, only own 2.6% of America's wealth. That's 50%. Own only 2.6%, or $3.8 trillion. While 0.03%, now I know you hear a lot about the 1%, 0.03%, 10,486 people own 12% of America's wealth, or $15 trillion. That's 3 times what half the country owns. This is the same situation that Amos was speaking to in his time. The situation in Israel as described by Amos was not unlike our situation. The economic system then was harsh, but made harsher by the greed of the wealthy, who took unmerciful advantage of the plight of the poor, simply in order to enlarge their holdings, often resorting to the sharpest practices, the falsification of weights and measures, and various legal dodges to activate or to achieve their ends. And so the poor in ancient Israel and the poor in modern America increasingly were robbed and dispossessed. In America today, the banks are doing very well. The banks that we bailed out just a minute ago in 2008 are ripping Americans off like never before. It's not China ripping us off. It's not Mexico ripping us off. It's not Canada ripping us off. It's not Panama ripping us off. It's our own U.S. banks ripping us off. Check this out. The gap between interest rates on savings accounts and interest rates on credit cards has never been bigger. Average savings account, 2%. The average interest rate on a credit card, 24.37%. But do we hear initiatives about limiting interest rates like we used to do? Interest rates are at an all-time high. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's the same old game. It hasn't changed in thousands of years. And those who should shout the condemnation of such corruption back in ancient Israel and in modern America have themselves been co-opted. The clergy of the state cult in Israel and the clergy of the civil religion of America have placed their patriotic fervor at the service of the state and given it the blessings of God. They are unable to criticize the nation in their nationalistic oracles, which only contribute to the general complacency. God bless America. Even the national religious leaders, then and now, had sunk into the general corruption and were generally regarded by the people with contempt. Sound familiar? So yes, inside the Capitol building, there will be prayers and praise, but will God attend the inauguration? But we don't have to rely only on Amos. We do have prophets in our own time. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we celebrate on tomorrow, wrote in his book, Strength to Love, these words: God never intended for one group of people to live in superfluous, inordinate wealth, while others live in abject, deadening poverty. You know, we celebrate King every year with the same old phrases. We seem to only know those few words from his I Have a Dream speech that speaks of the racial harmony that we all desire. But we need to know more about King. We need to know more of what he said. And we need to be reminded that just days before his assassination in 1968, Dr. King organized a march on Washington called the Poor People's March. Somebody has revived that march. Bishop Barber, he's a prophet today. But King was marching on Washington in 1968 with the poor people of this country, which centered around the fundamental ideal that all people should have a chance to live a good life, a job with a living wage, employment training, affordable housing, education, and access to health care. The Poor People's Campaign was a multiracial effort, including African Americans, white Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and aimed simply at alleviating poverty, regardless of race. So it is that on tomorrow, some people will be celebrating the modern-day prophet of nonviolence, love, and justice, Martin Luther King Jr. And other people will be celebrating the modern-day robber barons of America, including the 47th President of the United States. These events, being on the same day, present somewhat of a dilemma. Which one should I go to? Where will I go? You see, I'm not sure that God can be, or even wants to be, in two places at one time. So let's consult Amos one more time. Amos, what do you think? Will God attend the inauguration? Now, I had Reg read the lengthy passage he did because those are some good words. But the climax of that passage comes now in the 21st and 24th verses. Amos says of the cult, in the royal cult in ancient Israel, I hate, I despise your festivals, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. And the offerings of well-being of your fatted animals, I will not look upon. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the melody of your harps. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. I think I know where God will be. Down by the river, that ever-flowing river of justice. Let the people of God say, amen.